Welcome everybody to the RACI Young Chemist Group Graduate Careers Launchpad. That's a very long title, isn't it? We are here today because of this graph. The data's a little bit old and it comes from a very useful website called graduatecareers.com.au. But what it says is that your typical graduate, this is a profile for university graduates and when they found their first job. And you can see that the median period for unemployment for recent graduates is 4 months. After 6 months, 20% of graduates still have not found work. Now, I will say to you right up front, 6 months of unemployment is soul-destroying. It rattles the strongest confidence. The purpose of being here today is to try to give you tips and tricks that you can use to significantly shorten your period of unemployment. Now, I will say to you this, in 25 years in my career, I have never been unemployed for longer than 3 weeks. I am not a stellar candidate, I am not the smartest, I am not the most skilled in any field that you choose to name. What distinguishes me, what makes it, has always made it quick for me to find work, is that I understand how the system works. And today is trying to teach you some of the tricks of how the system works so that you can find good work quickly. Is that an aim that we all agree with? Right. So, there's a couple of points that I want to make in welcome, in introducing today's discussion. And the first point is this. Understand that the job market is nothing personal. When an employer chooses you or doesn't choose you, it's not about you. It's about the asset that they're trying to put into their company. The cost of recruiting you is going to be at least $30,000. By the time that the employer has paid wages, disruption to their business, the red tape, the various other costs of employment, it's going to cost them at least $30,000. So when you're sitting across from that employer, they're not looking at you as a person. They're looking at you as a potential investment of $30,000. And I want you guys to think of yourselves as business assets and pitch yourselves as business assets. And that is what's going to help distinguish yourself from many of the other candidates. Now, I was talking to some of you before and I said, going for a job is like running away from a lion. You don't have to be the fastest runner. You don't have to be Usain Bolt. You just have to be faster than the next guy. Okay? So if you have these tips and tricks, then you can quickly find work and you can quickly find good work. I mean, none of us, we'll take the job in Woolies if we have to tide us over. But what we want is we want that career position. We want that position that's going to inspire us. Now, I have never worked for a job I didn't love. Does that worth something to you? I have never worked for a job I didn't love. And you can have the same. Now, a fundamental aspect of recruitment. Skills can be taught, personality can't. As you come out of university, you more or less are a commodity. You more or less have the same training, you have more or less the same experience. You are more or less equal to the other graduates around you. The thing that's going to distinguish yourself is your personality. How do you put yourself forward? How do you think about yourself? How are you going to fit into that organisation? Those abilities and those aspects of yourself, that's what's going to distinguish yourself from others. So when somebody comes to work for me, that's what I'm looking for. How are they going to fit in my organisation? Because I can teach them to do the job. I can't teach them to be right. And I should give you the example. I had a young engineer who worked for me for a couple of years. When he started with me, he came out of university green. We used to call him Ethelred. Ethelred the Unready was an early king of England. And he came out, he was completely unprepared for the workforce. He was absolutely, from a skills perspective, he was useless. But he had the right attitude. He learned, he paid attention, he asked questions when it was time to ask questions. And he, over the course of a couple of years, turned out to be a stellar employee. And it was that I looked for, that personality, that was most important. Right, next message. I have put up a desperately sad, embarrassing image of a very young Dave, very nerdy young Dave. The Scout motto is to be prepared. The same motto applies to the job market. Now, every person who talks to you today is going to give you that same message, I'm sure, that it's all about preparation. And you need to treat the job, sorry, delete it honestly. You need to treat the job process as as a job in itself. Show the same seriousness about looking for work that you would apply to actually doing the job once you get the job. Right? Now we'll talk all about this stuff. Now I will say a couple of quick things. All of today's slides will be made available, willing from the other presenters, yes. They'll all be made available to you through the YCG. There is also, on your materials, you saw a link to a long video that we created called Understanding the Job Market. Now I know some of you it won't have worked for you because you probably tried to look at it through a Chrome browser. Apparently it doesn't work properly through a Chrome browser. If you look through IE, it works. Okay, I apologise. I will also put it on the DCS technical website so that hopefully we get past that problem. But I haven't done that yet, so you'll have to give me a couple of days. But in short, yeah, look, I know it's some balding, slightly tubby old bloke banging on for a couple of hours, but there's a lot of useful advice in there, and I would recommend it to each and every one of you. Okay, this is what we're doing today. We're going to have 3 presentations about the job market. Blake here is going to talk about the job market. Helena, there you are. Sorry, I was looking right past you. Is going to talk about resume tips, and then I'm going to talk about interview tips. Then we're going to go into interviews and networking. Each of you is going to get a 15-20 minute interview. Many of you have actually prepared and submitted applications for the mock job ad. Well done, you. Those of you who haven't, that's okay. We'll just work with as we go, okay? But we created a job ad. Has everybody seen the job ad? Hands up. Yes? You're looking a little dubious there. We'll make sure that you get a copy. Kirsty, can you turn behind you and make sure that young lady behind you gets a copy? Anybody else not seen a copy of the job ad? Okay, right. So it's just an opportunity, it's an opportunity for you to just talk about a real job, so you get a chance to talk about some real stuff. And then in between, those mentors who aren't actually in an interview at the time, and myself and the YCG, will be all out there. It's all about networking. There was actually a really interesting idea was put forward by the American Chemical Society recently. What they called was a jobs club, where students got together and they talked about their efforts and what they had learned, so that they could all use each other as a network to improve their chances of getting a job. Now, I think that's a bloody good idea. And I think that those of you who get on well today should think about exchanging details and do something similar. Many hands make light work, and you know, work can be found. Even in a crappy job market, work can be found. Good work can be found. Because again, it's about running from the line. You don't have to, look, I'm a consultant. You know what consultant means? It just means I know 10% more than my client. It doesn't mean I'm an expert. It just means I know that 10% more, right? Okay, and lastly, we're going to finish the day with a panel session where those mentors who are able to stay will stay, and then it'll be an opportunity for you guys to ask questions and talk about some different viewpoints on the same thing. So I hope each of you, we'll think up some questions over the course of the day, and we'll go to it. I speak very quickly, don't I? That's my problem. These are our mentors today, okay? We have, Wahib is not here yet, but we have Wahib Saad from Evolve Scientific Recruitment, so he's actually a professional recruiter. We have Andrew Jones at the back from Foundry IP. We have Matthew Mansfield, there you are Matthew, who's from a commercial analytical laboratory, and behind him we have Scott Colburn, also from a commercial analytical laboratory. We have Blake Adair-Roberts from Professionals Australia, another professional society. I'm very pleased to have 3 people from the various university career services here. We have Helena, we have Angela and Lena, sorry, Lena and Angela. There we go, sorry. And we have Matthew Wilkinson from Callington Haven, who is a medium-sized manufacturing producer in Sydney. And Leo Hyde from DuPont, who is not here yet. So Leo is just replied, so Leo's from large companies. So what we've got is we've got a really good spread of people here today, and it's a really good opportunity for you to talk with them, to network with them, to get their different perspectives, because each different background has a different perspective. And I would very much like to thank our sponsors for today. Foundry IP, thank you very much Andrew. Evolve Scientific Recruitment, and Wahib's not in the room yet, and EnviroLab. Now EnviroLab hires a lot of young graduates for good quality positions, but it's a very interesting perspective, and I'm sure Matthew would agree with me when I say commercial analytical laboratories are an interesting start because they require patience. You have to earn your chops in commercial analytical laboratories. So it's a good opportunity to really learn your craft well as you go. And then I'd also like to offer a special thanks to the Young Chemist Group, to Kirsty, to Neve, and to John. Where's John gone? There you are, John, at the back. who put a whole lot of time into preparing for today's event, and of course, thanks very much to UTS for hosting us today. Okay, so let's get started. Blake, you can launch in. Here's the GV ranking. Thanks very much. Oh, there guys, thank you very much for coming along today. Some of you may have seen me in a couple of your lectures before across different universities, whether you're a chemist, chemical engineer, environmental science, whatever you are, you may have come across me. For those of you who haven't, I'm the National Professional Development Coordinator at Professionals Australia. My background is as an environmental scientist, economist, and because I enjoy not sleeping, a law background as well. With Professionals Australia, we're a not-for-profit professional association that covers scientists and engineers, anyone working in STEM fields, whether you're a technical worker or a managerial worker, whatever you're doing, whatever kind of background you have. We're an organisation of about 25,000 members. Basically, our focus here is just to help you guys get into good jobs, give you the skills, the training, support, work on a big policy level to improve the job market, work with companies to improve their training, and work with scientists to improve the skills that you guys have. And today, when Dave asked me to speak about the job market, I wanted to kind of focus in on probably the most tedious and demoralising part for any graduate. That's a rejection email that you get. It is a demoralising part. It is that part where you go for 3, 4, 5 months and you don't get a call back that says anything or an email back that says anything other than it's a really competitive process and you just weren't good enough this time. And whenever I ask my coaches that work across the country coaching young professionals, that's what they say is the most demoralising part for our members, is sending out 3 dozen different job applications, starting at the top, at the really, really juicy ones that you've always wanted to go for, those really prestigious companies that you've always dreamed of, and slowly you move further and further down and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. How do you get through that? How do you start turning those emails into an invite in to have an interview, a formal or an informal interview, whatever it is? How do you get their attention for long enough that you're not the one who gets picked off by the lion first, that you get to go out and have that interview and then convince them that you run faster than the next person? How do you get to do that? Well, there's 5 key things that have come out to us. I'm going to focus on this getting shortlisted bit. 5 things that have come out of our work readiness survey that we do every couple of years, where we ask employers and ask our members what kind of things best prepare a scientist to going out into the industry, an engineer going out into the industry. So these are very broad kind of areas. They may be different for particular companies, but by and large, these 5 things that if you focus in on these and don't try and sell yourself in a broad way, but you're focusing on the 5 things that the employer wants to hear, and you talk directly to that throughout your cover letter, throughout your resume, throughout your LinkedIn, throughout your networking attempts, all of these kind of things will add up and you'll start to be talking directly to what they want, and that's when you start to get invited back in. So working off what Dave said before, the first and probably the most important thing that we've come across that employers say is enterprise skills. It works from that idea that when you guys graduate, maybe you've got the Dean's Award, you've got 110% every time, maybe you've got first class honours, maybe you're a little bit further than everyone else, but by and large, when you graduate, you've all got the same qualifications. You've got qualifications that qualify you to do the job, but they don't entitle you to doing any kind of work. You still have to go through a 2-year graduate program, or a certain amount of time being trained up, where you're not producing for the company. At that point, they are sinking costs into you with the expectation that later on down the track, you become good enough to produce value for the company. So at this point, the enterprise skills are what separates you. Quick show of hands, you should all know this. What are enterprise skills? You guys shy, or you're just not sure?
Interpersonal skills?
Interpersonal skills. They're your non-technical skills. They're your ability to turn what you know into some kind of value for the organisation, whether you're in the public sector and you're doing safety tests, or you're working in the private sector and you're working for a consultancy and you're trying to win over and seek out clients. Whatever you're doing, these kind of skills, these communication skills, teamwork, time management, business writing, these kind of skills allow you to be an effective employee and produce value for the company. And the technical side, they can all be trained. These kind of skills are much more difficult to train, and it comes down to, are you willing to put in the work and be effective? But more importantly, at the graduate level, most people will be able to do the initial stages technically because you're getting trained up. So you're all getting into that interview stage, you're all applying with the same qualification, an undergraduate degree in such and such,
And at that point, you need to separate yourself, and the best way to do that is by showing you have these enterprise skills. As far as actually developing these enterprise skills, and talking directly to employers, this comes down to, throughout your LinkedIn, are you using STAR stories, situation, task, action, result? Are you using this in your resume? You're not just telling people about your responsibilities, but you're showing them that you actually have these skills. Because the key here is they're looking at these kind of the resumes and the LinkedIns, and they're thinking, well, if I bring this person in for an interview and I ask them, give me a time to use your communication skills to get a result in a sticky situation, and I've already read on their LinkedIn a story where they told me about a time that they did that, I already know what their answer is going to be. And I already know that they're going to be a good candidate to interview, and even if we don't hire them, my boss is going to be happy because I brought in a bunch of really good candidates and we got to choose from the best. Yeah? Think about it from their view. If I want to bring someone in for a job, I want to impress my boss by getting in 10 fantastic candidates that they then choose from, rather than getting 9 average candidates and 1 good one. And then they're forced to choose the one that runs the fastest. The second thing that you should be looking for is your attitude, and this comes down to your passion. As chemists or as scientists in general, you're in a knowledge-based industry. That means you have to keep up to date with what's happening, and you have to be passionate. We survey all of our members every year, and the fact is, most of you will work a lot of overtime throughout your careers. To be doing that requires you to actually care about what you're doing. You have to be passionate, you have to be able to adapt to a changing environment, and you have to be willing to go out there and put in that extra work that is required to keep up to date and be at the forefront of a knowledge-based industry. So if I'm going to employ someone, you may be the star candidate, you may be someone getting the Dean's Award every single time and an absolute star. But if I think that you don't have the passion for the field you're going into, I know that you're not going to be able to go out there and do that extra work that's required and put in that extra 10% that is required for me to get value out of you and for you to go out there and move up within the company in the long term. How do you actually show that to an employer at this kind of level? The most effective way we found for our members is through your LinkedIn, again, using that to share content and show that you have a passion. Now, coming out to these kind of events are great, but when you're at the graduate level and you don't work day in, day out in the industry, it's sometimes hard to find these kind of events to go to. They're great when they pop up and you know about them, but they're not always easy. I know a few people mentioned that before. It's hard to find these kind of events. How do you then show to employers that you have a great level of passion and an attitude that goes along with moving into the industry when you're not able to go to these events all the time and meet them face to face? If on your LinkedIn, when they go to vet you before bringing you in for an interview, they see that every day and every week you've been engaging with your industry through sharing content, curating content, even having your own blog around the areas that you're passionate about, they already know that you care about that part of the industry, and you would go in there and be willing to work in there and put in that extra effort and time that they expect from you. A rule that we have, that we tell our members to use in your young professionals team is a 4-2-1 rule. So every week, share 4 pieces of content on your LinkedIn around your area, your profession that you want to go into. Every week, curate 2 pieces. So get 2 pieces, read through them, and add a little bit of your own thoughts to that before you share that. And then write 1 blog post, which is your own ideas. Doing that for a fair amount of time, doing that for 3, 4, 5 months, if you have that on your LinkedIn, that shows a really high level of interest and passion for the industry that is more likely to get you called in for the interview because they're much more trusting in you that they're seeing the kind of evidence that they need that you have a passion for the industry. Thirdly is your recommendations. This area comes down to how well you work with people in an organisation. On Dave's slide before, there was a bit about the cost that comes from other employees working with you and training you up and things such as that. The fact of the matter is that you guys are going to be working in multidisciplinary teams and all different kinds of organisations with a range of different people. You know, other scientists, God forbid, lawyers, all different types of people. And you're going to have to be able to communicate effectively with them. You're going to have to be able to work with them. And people are going to have to simply like you, and you're going to have to be able to prove that people like you enough that you're not someone who costs the company money or the organisation money by being someone who's hard to work with in a team. Now, the traditional way you'd show this is on your references, on your resume. But it's not always the most reliable source, because if my friend Ben over here, we work together, and I go for a job somewhere else, and I say, Ben, we're mates, can you kind of give me a good reference? Employer calls up, they ask Ben, how does Blake work? He's great, he rocks up on time every day, he takes on extra work, and he's fantastic, everyone loves him. None of that's true, but we're friends. They know that sometimes that happens, so a much easier way to reassure them and get that kind of concrete evidence is to have recommendations on your LinkedIn. Have these recommendations from people that have worked in, it doesn't have to be in industry, it can be at university, it can be all different kind of job environments where you've been in a team and people have had to work with you, and showing to employers that people like you, but then going further than that and recommending other people, showing to someone that you have the self-awareness to know why you work with other people. Maybe you're a big picture kind of person and you glaze over the technical details. If you can say that you like working with people that have that fine attuned to technical details, that shows that you have the self-awareness about why you work well in a team, and that self-awareness to improve your teamwork abilities and how well you will go throughout your career. And that is crucial because no matter where you go, you will not be working with simply the same people that have the same background as you. You'll have to be adaptive to the kind of teams that you work in, and they'll come from a very broad range of disciplines. So you need to be able to convince employers that you can work well in a team environment. Fourthly is your professional goals. There's two reasons this is important for employers to see before they invite you in for an interview. First, if you don't have any goals, it can be hard to tell what your direction is. That can come across rudderless, and that just simply doesn't look great. The second reason is, in any job interview, you'll get some kind of question where they ask, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years' time? Some kind of variant of that to kind of vet where you see your career going. Now, it costs at least $30,000 to hire you, probably more than that, depending on how long you're trained up for. Now, if you go for a job interview and you say that in 5 years' time you see yourself working for a completely different part of the industry, or in a different industry altogether, or for their competitor who does more exciting things, they're thinking in their head that I'm going to train this person up, sink a whole lot of costs into them, and then once I'm finished training them and they're really employable, they're going to go somewhere else because that's where their ambition is and I can't provide for that. So no matter how good they are, it's not going to be worthwhile on a business perspective to hire that person. So what you need to do is throughout your cover letter, particularly here it is most important, convey that in some form or way this job that you are applying for matches up to your ambition, matches up to your goals. And I know you won't always go for your dream job, that's the reality of the job market, that you won't always be able to go for that. But find something that you can convey that matches up to your ambition, because when people are interviewing you, they want to know the answer to that question before they bring you into an interview. They want to know where you see yourself in a few years' time before you come in. So when they ask that question, they're going to get the same answer that you wrote throughout your cover letter. And it's going to be something that they can provide for you if you want to be able to get that job. So that's crucial to getting into the interview. And finally, for that higher order kind of skill, that level beyond what most graduates go and do, is understanding the industry that you're going into. Not from a technical level, that is important, but most of you could probably grasp that to some degree. But understanding the business model that you're going into. Am I going into the public or private sector? Am I going into an in-house team or a consultancy firm? How does my business or organisation function on a day-to-day level beyond just the technical side of things? What do we do to earn money? What is the industry looking like? What are the projections? What are the economic headwinds that we have to deal with? What is the policy and regulatory environment that we work in? Are we being affected by outsourcing and globalisation, or are we someone who's able to withstand to those kind of pressures? Are there jobs going in different areas? What's happening that affects our organisation on a day-to-day level? The reason this is important is because while at first you will go in there and do technical work and be told what to do, you're not hired to do that for the rest of your career. You're hired with the expectation that if you turn out to be a star candidate, you'll be moved up and you'll start to take on a managerial role and delegate work to other people and take on a more strategic role for the company that produces value for them. Whether you're in the public or private sector, that is the expectation if you stick around long enough. No one wants a 7-year graduate who still does the same things that they did when they first came in. So for an employer, when they see someone who has this kind of knowledge and this kind of understanding of the industry at that early level, it shows that they might be that candidate that can go on and do that kind of fantastic work that they want them to do if they're trained well enough. This comes down to understanding what's going on in your industry. It's a bit harder to convey, that's why it is that higher order skill. This is where your LinkedIn comes in. Don't focus solely on the technical side. Try and convey that you do know what's going on a day-to-day level, from the policy, the economic, and the business model kind of viewpoint. Macro, micro, and policy. If you want to know where to get all of this information, these kind of places are a great way to start. You go to RACI and you get all the information there. We have a whole bunch of information. It's all out there. Go read the AFR every day. Go read these kind of The Economist. Go read these things that have nothing to do directly with the technical work you'll be doing, but helps you understand the industries that you're going into in a way that allows you to talk about them and convey how much you know to employers. I will finish up on that note. I'm not sure if Dave wants questions to be now or later on.
Go ahead.
I will finish up on that note, but thanks very much for coming along, guys. And if you have any questions, feel free to shout them out before we move on to the next speaker.
I'll launch in with the first question, and I'm sure others will follow.
Sure.
But now, if I was a young person sitting in this room and I had just listened to this presentation, I would probably feel a little bit daunted as to how much work is expected of me. Does anybody feel that right now? How would you suggest somebody who's been doing none of this, how would you suggest they get started? Because they're not going to leave you with both of them.
Yeah. It's whenever you have a daunting task, and this is something that I as a graduate didn't quite grasp. I thought you did everything in one night and you just bit off more than you could chew and you hope for the best. Break it down into bite-sized chunks. The first step is simply identifying what are your enterprise skills. Am I a great communicator? Do I work really well with other people? Have I got a high level of project management abilities? Can I manage teams? At university, was I the person who took charge of the projects? If I was, write a few stories about them. Put them up in your LinkedIn, put them in your resume, turn those responsibilities into your enterprise skills. Think of it as in small little chunks that you bite off bit at a time, and after a while you get there. You don't need to know exactly what's happening in your industry from the get-go. But if you read one article a day, within a couple of weeks, I can guarantee you'll be far, far further away than you were when you started. And it didn't take much time. All you did was on the way to work on the bus, you read one article. Every night you found one article to read, and the next day you went and read it. That's all you did. All you did one night is you wrote out what your goals are for your career over the next 5-10 years. And then you got that, and you changed that for every company that you applied for in some way that matched up to what they're doing. So think about it in a very small, bite-sized kind of chunks, but doing a little bit every day. Every day, ask yourself, what am I going to do today to get myself a little bit closer to where I want to be?
Great start. Okay, anybody else want to jump in? Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike.
No worries.
Okay, here we go. Next we have Helena Asher from UTS Careers. Helena will be talking about resume skills, and thank you very much.
Thank you. So, just a show of hands, by the way, thanks for coming here on a wet, rainy Thursday afternoon when you could be at home, snuggled up in bed watching Netflix. So, thank you very much for coming, I really appreciate it. Just a show of hands, who here has LinkedIn? Okay, hands up, hands down. Who here doesn't have LinkedIn? Alright, I just wanted to quickly show you what LinkedIn looks like. I think for a lot of you who've never seen it before, it sounds really daunting and really scary and like, why should I even bother with it? This is my feed, so when I log into LinkedIn, this is what comes up. This is my profile. My profile didn't start like this. I had to spend a good couple of hours making it look like this. So what I would recommend is when you finish today, create a LinkedIn profile. Just start there, then use it as a research tool. So don't even think